B2B advertising, paid strategies for lead growth. Paid B2B advertising is a pipeline tool, not a side project. If you've ever watched your SDR team grind through outreach while your ad budget quietly drains in the background, you're seeing a common B2B disconnect. Marketing optimizes for form fills, sales wants meetings, and nobody trusts the lead quality. In 2025, paid media can't be treated as a separate world from sales development. It's simply one more way to start conversations with the right accounts at the right time. The moment leads start costing real money, alignment stops being a nice-to-have. For B2B and business services, paid search averages a 5.78% conversion rate, with an average cost per lead of about $105.64, which means every misrouted lead, slow follow-up, or generic landing page becomes an expensive mistake. At those economics, optimizing for clicks alone is a fast path to a bloated CRM and an empty pipeline. At SalesHive, we treat paid advertising the same way we treat outbound, as a coordinated system. When your paid programs bring in demo requests, pricing page visitors, and hand raisers, our SDR agency workflow turns that interest into sales-ready meetings through fast qualification, consistent follow-up, and tight feedback loops with your marketing team. Paid doesn't replace cold calling services or a cold email agency motion. It makes the whole engine more efficient. Why precision paid media matters more than ever. B2B advertising has shifted from spray and pray to precision targeting because the market forces it to. LinkedIn is the clearest example. It generates about 80% of B2B leads that come from social media, and its ads are reported to drive roughly 2x higher conversion rates for B2B than other social networks. That dominance is exactly why broad prospecting on LinkedIn is usually a waste. You pay premium prices, so you need premium focus. Spin patterns reinforce the same story. LinkedIn is expected to capture around 22.9% of total B2B digital ad spend, plus about 47.2% of B2B display ad spend, which signals how central targeted social and display have become for account-focused programs. In other words, modern B2B teams don't pick one channel. They build a cross-channel path that keeps the same accounts seeing consistent messaging from first touch to booked meeting. The practical takeaway is simple. You win when you connect paid media to sales stages. Cold audiences need problem-aware messaging that earns attention, while high-intent segments, retargeting pools, competitor searchers, pricing page visitors, need direct offers that earn a conversation. When you do this correctly, an outsourced sales team or sales development agency can spend less time chasing low-intent downloads and more time closing the loop on real buying signals. Channel roles. Search captures intent, LinkedIn targets ICP, display keeps you present. Paid search is still the most predictable place to capture existing demand because buyers tell you what they want through their keywords. The benchmark for B2B and business services, 5.78% conversion rate and roughly $105.64 CPL, sets expectations for budget planning and volume forecasting, not guarantees. The teams that beat benchmarks usually do it with tighter keyword intent, sharper ad-to-landing alignment, and faster lead handling by sales. LinkedIn is your best paid channel for reaching the exact people who influence decisions, but it must be used like a scalpel. With average LinkedIn benchmarks around 0.62% CTR and roughly $5.39 CPC, you can't afford vague positioning or broad targeting. We recommend reserving LinkedIn for ICP and strategic ABM, specific industries, firmographics, and decision-maker titles. Then using the offer and the SDR follow-up to turn that expensive click into a meeting. Display gets misunderstood because it's rarely a standalone lead engine. It's a multiplier. When used for retargeting and account-based advertising, it can be cost-effective, with an average display CPL reported around $63. The win comes from sequencing. Display keeps you visible after a site visit, while SDRs, in-house or via a B2B sales agency like SalesHive, use cold calling USA coverage and email follow-up to convert that attention into a scheduled conversation. Build campaigns around sales stages and funnel math. A paid strategy that works on paper often fails in revenue because it isn't built on funnel math. If search leads average around $105.64, LinkedIn sits near $75 per lead, and display averages around $63, your true question isn't, can we get leads? It's, can we turn these leads into meetings, opportunities, and closed-won revenue at a sustainable CAC? To make that answer measurable, we recommend defining stage-specific conversion targets before scaling spend. Your top-of-funnel offers should be evaluated on downstream movement, not vanity volume, and your high-intent offers should be evaluated on speed to lead and meeting rate. If your team is running pay-per-appointment lead generation goals, the handoff has to be immediate, and the qualification criteria have to be consistent. Otherwise, your cost per meeting balloons even if CPL looks fine. The easiest way to pressure test your plan is to map channel benchmarks into a simple economics view. Use the table below as a starting point for planning. Then replace the targets with your real numbers after the first 2 to 4 weeks of data. If you can't trace ad spend to meetings and pipeline, you're not running a growth channel. You're funding a guessing game. Execution that converts, offers, landing pages, and speed to lead. Most paid programs underperform for one boring reason. The offer doesn't match the buyer's intent. Instead of pushing book a demo to everyone, tie the CTA to the stage. Problem-aware audiences respond to practical assets and workshops, while in-market segments respond to audits, comparisons, ROI assessments, and pricing consults. When your offer is aligned, your sales agency motion becomes simpler because SDRs aren't trying to force a meeting out of someone who only wanted a generic PDF. Landing pages matter more in B2B than most teams admit because they are the bridge between ad promise and sales conversation. Keep the page aligned to a single outcome, reinforce the value with specific proof, and make the next step feel low risk. If you run LinkedIn lead gen forms to reduce friction, make sure the thank you step sets expectations for follow-up and captures enough qualification to let your SDR agencies or in-house reps prioritize the best conversations first. Speed to lead is where paid spend is either protected or wasted. When leads cost $75 to $105 plus, a 2-day follow-up delay is effectively a tax on your CAC because prospects move on and sales ends up calling cold. This is where a sales outsourcing partner can be decisive. A dedicated cold calling team and email follow-up can respond fast, qualify consistently, and book meetings while the buyer's intent is still hot. Common mistakes that burn budget and how we fix them. A classic failure mode is optimizing for MQL volume instead of revenue outcomes. High CTR and cheap clicks can look great in weekly marketing updates, but if sales rejects the leads or the leads never become opportunities, the channel isn't working. The fix is to report performance by lead to meeting rate, meeting show rate, and lead to opportunity rate by campaign. Then shut off anything that can't back into sustainable economics. Another common mistake is using LinkedIn like a broad awareness channel just because it's B2B. With benchmarks like $5.39 CPC and only 0.62% CTR on average, broad targeting turns into a very expensive lesson. Instead, treat LinkedIn as an ABM and ICP tool, tighter audiences, clearer outcomes, and messaging that speaks directly to the objections your buyers raise on calls and in email replies. The third mistake is letting paid and outbound operate in parallel without coordination. If your team is hiring cold callers, running B2B cold calling services, or using a cold email agency, those touches should be synchronized with your paid audiences and account lists. When ads, telemarketing, LinkedIn outreach services, and email sequences hit the same accounts with the same story, you get compounding returns instead of fragmented noise. Optimization. Use SDR feedback loops to improve ads fast. Your fastest conversion rate improvements usually come from sales, not marketing dashboards. SDRs hear real language from prospects every day: objections, desired outcomes, competitor comparisons, and the words buyers actually use to describe their problems. When we run paid plus outbound programs, we build a weekly feedback loop where SDR call notes and email threads directly inform new ad angles, landing page copy, and qualification questions. Retargeting becomes far more effective when it's tied to outreach context. Instead of showing generic request a demo banners, align retargeting creative to the pages visited and the stage of evaluation. Then, have SDRs reference that same context in follow-up. This 1-2 punch works because it removes guesswork. Ads keep your message present, and outreach turns that familiarity into a direct conversation. Account-based programs deserve special attention because the upside is outsized in high ACV B2B. With 87% of businesses reporting ABM as their highest ROI strategy, the play is to unify list-building services, paid audiences, and outbound sequences, so the same named accounts are consistently engaged. That's where a B2B sales outsourcing approach can shine. Your list, your ads, and your SDR execution all point at the same target. Next steps: a practical 30-day plan to turn paid spend into meetings. Start by choosing your primary channels based on where intent and targeting are strongest for your offer. For most teams, that means search for bottom funnel capture, LinkedIn for ICP and ABM, and display for retargeting and account coverage. Use benchmark economics, around $105.64 for search leads and roughly $75 for LinkedIn leads, to set expectations. Then, judge success on meetings and pipeline rather than raw lead counts. Next, tighten the operational pieces that usually sink performance: lead routing, speed to lead, and qualification consistency. If you plan to outsource sales or hire SDRs, make sure the handoff from ads is immediate and the talk track matches the promise of the ad. This is where the best cold calling services and a well-run outbound sales agency motion create leverage, because every paid lead gets worked quickly and consistently instead of slipping through cracks. Finally, treat optimization as a weekly discipline, not a quarterly reset. Review which campaigns generate meetings, which meetings convert to opportunities, and which objections are showing up repeatedly in conversations. If you want to see how this looks in practice, SalesHive runs integrated programs that connect paid intent to outbound execution, using list building, personalization, and SDR follow-up to consistently book meetings for B2B teams.